So we can end in an hour. So Celeste, we appreciate you being here. I think you can call us to order. We may be getting very close to the last time you'll have to do this. So.
Ooh, there might be some news then coming along. Good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and begin the Executive Committee meeting of the Youth Development Council. Today is August 3rd. I actually do not have the land acknowledgement pulled up right now. I should have done so earlier. Melissa or Brian, do either of you have the language in front of you?
I do. Thanks,
Yeah.
Celeste. I can do that. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
All right, great. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the many tribes and bands who call Oregon their ancestral territory and honor the ongoing relationship between the land, plants, animals, and people indigenous to this place we now call home. We recognize the continued sovereignty of the 9 federally recognized tribes who have ties to this place and the subsequent bands within those tribes, and thank them for continuing to teach us how we might all be here together.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, so maybe we can go through and just do a quick introduction of everyone who's on the line, and then we can get started. Today is a public meeting. So like all public meetings, we have time at the end of the meeting where members of the public can share a comment. That time is recorded. So we have, I believe, it's 3 minutes per person. So if there's anything that you would like to share and you're not a member of the YDC Executive Committee, if you could let us know. And would it be best, Melissa, to have folks shoot you a text, shoot you a chat if they'd like to be on public comment, if they'd like to say something?
Yes, please, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful, great. So anybody who is here as a member of the public, that will be the time with which, if you choose to and you don't need to, it's something that you're welcome to do. I'd like to first of all have the members of the YDC, of the committee, just quickly introduce yourselves. I'm Celeste Jansen, and I am committee chair. Actually, Melissa, do we need to do a roll call introduction, or should we just do it this way?
I can just do a quick roll call, and when I call your name, if you can just, in addition to saying here, if you can raise your hand so our guests can actually see who's speaking, that would be great. Janet Ahrens, Janine Hartley.
Here.
Celeste Jansen.
Here.
Maricela Ortega Guzman.
Here.
Jeff Parker. Molly Rogers. Let's see, Molly. Karen Spencer.
I'm here.
And John Teague had replied that he would not be able to attend. So those are the members of the executive committee. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Melissa. Could I also have the members of the staff introduce themselves as well, so we know who's on the phone? Brian, do you want to start?
Sure, yeah, Brian Detman, Youth Development Division Director.
Melissa Gallardo, Youth Development Division Executive Support and Administrative Support for the Council.
Hi, I'm Cord Buger, the Acting Chief of Staff for the Youth Development Division. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Is there anyone else? I don't see anyone else. Okay, great. And if you are a member of the public and you're here to join us, feel free to go ahead and type your name in the chat, and welcome. We're pleased to have you here. And let's get started with the first item on the agenda, which is the YDC membership update.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Again, really appreciate everybody being here. We've got a fair amount of information to share. So you'll want to bear with me for this part, and then also Cord's going to share some other pieces. We've put together a PowerPoint deck with all the vital information, which I'm sharing in front of you for those on video. If you're on the phone, we'll do our best to we'll not do our best. We will post this on our website after the meeting and can share this via email with other attendees from the council. So I'm just going to kind of try to go through each of these pieces. Let's see here if I know what I'm already went too fast. Melissa, I imagine you'll manage any comments or questions or things in the chat. Sound good? And Karen, I see your hand is up. I'm not sure if you have a question or comment that we may have addressed, but just acknowledge that. Is there something you wanted to add in, Karen?
I saw it raised during roll call, so I think it might be for that.
It was like a here. Okay, good. Obviously, so here's our agenda for the morning. Again, we have until 10 o'clock, so we're going to be moving pretty quickly. Land acknowledgement completed. Quick staff update. And I'll just mention it now. Actually, one of our longtime serving staff members, Ryan Shands, who is in the role of our compliance monitor position, which he is the person responsible for visiting and tracking facility-related compliance and ensuring that facilities in the state are consistent with the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act, ensuring that there's sight and sound separation between young people and adults, and again, because we have federal funds, there are some rules and laws that he's critical to making sure that we're consistent with. Ryan is going to be leaving the division in later September 20th, if I'm not mistaken, is his last day. Ryan's been us for about 10 years, done great work, came in with, I think, no direct experience in doing compliance monitoring, but learned on the job and has really done a ton to build up that position, to build up our capacity and our our infrastructure around monitoring facilities, including building a database and really serving as a resource, not only for law enforcement and others who are responsible from these facilities, but he's a resource nationally. In fact, he's moving to an organization that does technical assistance for grantees like the Youth Development Division, who are responsible for compliance in this regard. So it's I have the acronym. It's AIR, AIR, but it's somebody will have to help me remember, because like in the moment I'm forgetting.
American Institutes for Research.
There it is, American Institutes for Research. And he is going to work there as a consultant and technical assistance provider, again, working with organizations like the Youth Development Division around compliance monitoring. So long story short, we're sad to see Ryan depart, but also excited for this great opportunity that he has. We're working with our HR folks to determine a plan. I think what we'll do is some kind of rotation with some of our internal staff, so that some, in particular, one person who's already actually been working pretty closely with Ryan on this work will rotate into a position to fulfill those duties, and in fact is working really closely with Ryan to transition the work over the next few weeks. So we're again sad to see Ryan go, but feel like we have a solid plan in place to fulfill those duties as required by our federal funding. And I just wanted to, I don't know, I'm not sure that Ryan's on the line or on the phone today, but again, we just appreciate all the great contributions Ryan's made over the years. Any questions or comments from other staff? All right, I'm gonna move this
Ryan?
forward. Go, Celeste. Yes, please.
Yeah, I know Ryan has a very technical position, and when it
Yep.
comes to hiring him, I'm wondering if, we anticipate that there will be any challenges just in timeline or in filling that position, and that it might be a more challenging position to fill based on the needs or experience, or is there any way the council can support you in that transition?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Celeste. We are going to rotate somebody internally into the role. So, and we'll do that rotation, kind of a work out of class opportunity for somebody who's been and is currently working really closely with Ryan. So I think that we've got right now what we need, but I'm happy to, if we do a larger search down the line, or if for some reason the rotation doesn't work, we'll let you know. But right now we've got, I think, the capacity internally. It's going to cause some other things to happen internally, but because we're going to do a rotation with an existing staff into that role, I think we feel like we've got what we need for now.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I thought that was a short-term solution, but no, it sounds like that's a longer-term fix.
It'll be we hope for it to be a long-term solution, right?
Great.
But
Great,
we'll do it for 6 months or so, 6-8 months, and go from there.
Okay. Wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. All right. So now on to membership update, unless there are other questions from people.
Ryan, I had
Yeah.
one additional question, and that's about your position. Do we have any updates about the director's role, and if you'll be with us for longer?
Yeah, where am I going to be?
Right.
Let me see if I can do this quickly. So the legislature approved the budget. I'm not sure if the governor signed it or not. I can't remember. But the legislature approved the position that Serena moved into over at the Department of Administrative Services.
Okay.
So that has been legislatively approved. So feels pretty certain that Serena is now in a funded position as the Chief Culture Officer for the Department of Administrative Services. So that means that I will continue in the role as the Youth Development Division Director. There's some stuff that we need to work out from an HR standpoint. And I've had conversations with the governor's office and with the Oregon Department of Education HR, and feel very good and very solid. And again, few little nuances to work out, but I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, great. That's great news for the council. Great news for you. I'm grateful that we have that update. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Celeste. I'm glad you asked that. I hadn't thought about that much, but haven't thought about it in part because things are proceeding as I had hoped. All right.
I had a follow-up question,
Yes,
which
Karen.
is not related to the agenda, but sort of related to human resources just generally. As I talk with folks about the state reopening up and businesses reopening and people going back into the office, there's a good contingent of folks who are reluctant to go back into the office. And some of it has to do with, working from home. You don't have to deal with microaggressions or sexism or any of the other, office stuff that nobody likes. And I'm just wondering how you're tackling that, or if you've heard the same thing as well.
Yes, I mean, so I think it's probably best to just sort of address this now. I was going to talk about it a little bit later, just around reopening generally. The state had plans to reopen public buildings and spaces September 1st, so just a little less than a month from now. I will be in a meeting today, an all agency directors meeting, as I am on a monthly basis, where I'm imagining that some of that directive might shift a little given, right, the increase in cases from the Delta variant. And in response to that increase, the governor has, and following CDC recommendations and guidelines, been clear about the need to wear for face covering in public buildings. So generally speaking, I think our reopening plans might shift a little bit until after September 1st. So I'll be happy to, we'll see what I hear today at the all agency meeting. But to your point, more specifically, Karen, we're, as a division and as staff, I think I can speak on behalf of everyone, like really eager to actually meet each other. Many of us have never actually met except via Zoom. At the same time, as the director, people have been productive and on task, and I am not planning on requiring people to come into the office any more than they need to. So we will have a few of us, including myself, coming into the office when we have a real clear sense of when we feel good about reopening, which as of today as of right now is September 1st. But again, given shifting and changing data, that might shift out another month or two. But as on the whole, if staff are more comfortable working at home, more comfortable working remotely, we're going to maintain that for our staff so that they don't have to deal with whether it's microaggressions or long commutes or any number of things. And we'll be as clear as we can with staff about, like, here's when we want you to be here in person, and we'll try to give people as much advance notice, for a retreat or for some YDC, combined YDC meeting or things like that. But my general approach will be, do your job. Let's stay connected as much as we can virtually, and as I said, be transparent and communicative about when in person is really necessary. So I don't know, Karen, does that answer that?
It does. Thank you, Ryan.
Sure.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to move us forward to the next item, and I'm going to, try not to click things too quickly. So membership. Literally was getting emails this morning from the governor's office about the work that we've been working on and the things we've been doing over the past few months around adding some new folks to the council. So I'm excited to announce today that we have, I'm gonna 5 new members of the Youth Development Council. The governor has approved the appointments. A communication will officially go out later today, but the governor's office told me it was okay to announce. Robin Johnson, Raphael Miller goes by Rafi, Erica McAlpine, Andy Santana May, and Kiwi Wilson, all as new members of the council. One of those people is actually on the line today because I wanted Robin to join us as not only a new member, but also as our chair. So Celeste, you can, after serving so capably as chair for a number of years, but then also like extending that for what's frankly been about a year longer than than maybe you had signed up for. I'm excited to sort of, I don't know, help pass the torch, so to speak, right, from Celeste to Robin. Robin is on the line, and I don't know, Robin, if you don't mind, you would love for you to say a few words, and Celeste too, if there's any like words of, I don't know, wisdom, transition, etc. I would love to hear from you both. Robin, do you mind jumping in? For those, you might have to scroll it to the next screen for those, if you're looking for Robin's face, but I know she's there.
Hello, everyone. I am here. Brian, thank you for the introduction. And I just also want to point out, I think Rafi Miller is also on the line as a member.
Awesome.
That's great. So hello, everyone. I did introduce myself in the chat, but I didn't locate myself or say what organization I'm with. So I'm with Umpqua Bank. I'm located in Portland, Oregon, and I am our Director of Diversity and Inclusion, again, at the bank. And so I'm really excited to step in as chair. Brian had reached out to me earlier this year, a little unexpectedly, but I'm super excited. For those, just a little bit of background as to why I might at all be connected to the Youth Development Division is because, so my master's degree is in developmental psychology. I really thought I would be doing DEI work in the educational space. I still have a passion for that. A lot of my career has been working with youth, and so I have a connection there as well. And so I'm really excited to be able to step in as a chair. I know I have a lot to learn, so I'm excited to be on that learning journey. I really had a beautiful conversation with Celeste a couple of weeks ago, so I feel like I'm in good transitional hands. And I'm just excited to engage with you all and get to know you better. If you don't know me, I'm really big on relationship building and connection building. So I'm excited to do that work, as well as get to the exciting work of advancing the agenda that you all have laid out. I was able to participate last quarter as a public member and just listen in as you all went through your agenda items, and I walked away with nothing but energy and excitement to really lean into the work that you all have been up to. So I'm excited for the torch to be passed, and I'm excited to step into thought partnership with you all in a really meaningful way. Celeste, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Well, I just am appreciative of all of the new energy that we have on the council and that we have on the YDD team. I am so grateful to have had this experience as chair. It's been a really wonderful experience, and I'm also grateful to now step into the role just as a council member and to support Robin and support the team. I've asked to remain on the council because the work of the YDC is really near and dear to my heart. And I like the work of working on a systems level to try to make big, impactful changes for the youth in Oregon. And I'm grateful to be a part of this journey going forward. So thank you all. And Robin, I'm so excited to have you in this role. And at any point you can reach out and connect with me. And I look forward to meeting you, Rafi, and meeting also the new council members that will join us in the future. I think that's about all.
Thank you both. Rafi, if you're out there somewhere, you please say hello and maybe just say a couple of words. And if there are other new council members, since you're officially on, like, as I said, you're welcome to make a comment or two. Rafi, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you virtually. My name is Rafi Miller. I go by Rafi or Raphael, either one. I love them both. I am I direct restorative justice programming for a nonprofit organization based in Medford, Oregon, serving Jackson and Josephine counties. So I do a lot of work with the youth and also the staff of K-12 schools, as well as justice facilities. So really looking forward to stepping into this role to really help larger systems change, really excited about it. So looking forward to meeting all of you and getting plugged in and involved in the work. So nice to meet you.
Thanks so much, Rafi. Great to have you. Our other members, just real quickly, Erica McAlpine resides in the Bend area, Central Oregon area, works for Oregon State University Cascades campus. So she brings some geographic perspective and higher ed perspective, real passion for young people as well. So excited to have Erica coming on. And then Andy Santaname and Kiwi Wilson are two people who will bring experience as younger members of our council. So I imagine that they will join just generally as members of the council, but as members of our youth committee, and both have lived experience with our with the Oregon Youth Authority, and are just having spoken to folks who are around them and supporting and mentoring them. I've spoken with Kiwi directly in the past. I'm just excited to have the two of them engaged to bring their perspective, their expertise, their real desire to learn and grow in their roles as new council members. So excited to both have Andy and Kiwi. Kiwi is also involved with the Coalition of Juvenile Justice Emerging Leaders program at a national level. So he brings that, and again, both of them have some lived experience with it, which will be really valuable to our work, and we'll have all of these folks joining our September meeting, ideally, right? So we can maybe have either, I don't know if we'll have bios, or we'll do more to ensure that they're introduced at that next meeting. So that's the note on those new members. I've just put a little asterisk here around needing to select or elect a vice chair. I'm not exactly sure what process we've used for that, if there's like nominations or some other process. And again, I don't want to spend a ton of time, but I just am sort of highlighting that we need to have a vice chair. Just full disclosure, Janine was our vice chair, but then when she moved into a public sector role, that actually made her ineligible to continue on as vice chair. But obviously Janine's here today and is really deeply engaged with the council's work. So Janine, we really appreciate that. So if there are any quick ideas or thoughts on the vice chair, we can also bring this back to the full council in September, but I just want to highlight that we need a vice chair, and that can also be a nice, for some way for us either to pass the torch in the future, but also to, when Robin, for whatever, is unavailable, or if there's, something that comes up, having a couple of folks in that kind of chair and vice chair role will really be helpful to keep things moving. So I don't know, Janet and others who've been more involved in and have a deeper history, Janine, Celeste, et cetera. Any thoughts on the vice chair role?
This is Janine. Hi, all. I would encourage us to think if there's an opportunity to have a youth hold that position. Mm-hmm. But I just want to plant that seed.
Yeah. Thanks, Janine.
I think it's really helpful in terms of scheduling just to have a backup. There have been times where we've been pretty tight. So I think it's useful, but it's also not urgent. So I love the idea of rounding out the executive committee in some way by having somebody who would be a nice partner with Robin in that role. So, okay. Yep.
I have, Brian, I haven't thought, but I'll just shoot you a quick text or email.
Okay, awesome. I will look out for that, Janet. Since Janet is on here, I'm also want to recognize Janet, who's got a big life event coming up here, if I'm not mistaken, in early September. So Janet, I don't know, congratulations, I think are in order for a coming wedding, but do you want to say a couple words about that or anything else?
Sure. You're exactly right. So Kurt and I have been together for 10 years, and we're actually going to get married on our 11th anniversary. We decided we've been along together so long that we didn't want to change the date. So we're keeping our original first date as our anniversary. That we didn't know at the time that it was a first date, but when I was president for the Fly Fishers Club of Oregon, he came in to the meeting and sat at my table, and a number of conversations happened there, and followed by a invitation to go fishing, a 4-day float on the Deschutes for steelhead, and he was bringing another gentleman with him. At the time of the invitation, I knew his first name. I didn't really know, and I didn't know anything about the other person or even what their name was. And I went back to, my parents, and it's like, what would my father say? Should I get in a boat and float down with these two guys for 4 or 5 days on the Deschutes River? And my immediate second thought was, hell yes, let's go. That'll be an adventure. And it turned out that the second person wasn't able to come, so it was just Kurt and I. And so I'm standing on the riverbank of the Deschutes, and he comes floating up in his boat, and he puts his arm around my shoulder, and he said, "I'm glad you're here." And it went quickly from there.
Fantastic, Janet. Thank you. Now we're starting to make me a little weepy, but I can hold it together. I love the story. Well, Janet, I think that also will mean, like, I think the wedding is like the day after our quarterly meeting. It's on the 10th, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you said that, right? So
well, we broke it up. So we're having a little wedding, 8 people, and then we're having our family and friends on the 11th, the following weekend, because we have so many people we haven't had a chance to see. We're doing everything outside. We're checking vaccinations. We're not requiring them, but we want to make sure we know that we've got a safe place for people to be outside and to celebrate with us. So we're working on that. Yeah, so the meeting is right in the middle between the wedding and the reception.
well, I've said to Janet, don't worry about the meeting. And now, but Janet was like, well, if you need to meet quorum, just let me know, or something that.
Yeah, give me that 15-minute slot, and I can punch in.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Janet. We've got folks like Janet and others who have basically agreed to sort of extend their terms until we had their roles filled. Just Janet, we appreciate all the contributions over the years. And I think now that we've got word from the governor's office, I feel really good about kind of where we are with the council. And maybe, I don't know, sometime in the fall, we'll try to organize some, I don't know, it's hopefully not Zoom, but maybe we can get Chief Teague and others and do a more formal, like, thank you and I don't know, celebratory event. Maybe it will be out in the rain in a park in November, for all I know. But we will do what we can to recognize and acknowledge all the contributions that you've made and others who are not going to be continuing, at least in a formal way, with the council, but we just appreciate all the contributions. All right, I'm going to move us because we got like 20 minutes left and still need a few minutes left for public comment. But so it goes. We'll do our best. The reappointments are listed on this slide at the bottom. That I don't need to explain. These are folks who just will continue to serve for a new 4-year term. And so we appreciate Eric and Janine, Celeste, Maricela, who's on the line, and also Liz, who will now have another 4 years with the council. And there's a 2-term limit. So this, I think, will be the 2nd term for each of those folks. Moving to committee. So this is, something I guess I just want to kind of plant a seed about. I think we'll have a little bit more time at the council meeting, but I'd love for you as executive committee members to kind of hear a bit about some restructuring ideas. We still have to get to some strategic plan updates and also some RFA stuff. So we got a fair amount of content to get to. I guess if we don't get to all of it, that's just the way it goes. But as it relates to committees, one of the things that we had talked a fair amount about as we had our retreat and we're doing strategic planning was like, where are we with our committees? How do we kind of restructure, reinvigorate some of the work of the committee? So the current committees are just quickly listed here. I've noted what what is active or inactive, but by inactive, I don't mean that there's not excited membership, but there just haven't been that many meetings. So Juvenile Justice Committee, obviously active in meeting, Youth Committee active in meeting, Workforce and Reengagement, though active hasn't had a meeting for at least 1 quarter because they didn't feel like they needed one. Administration and Rules Committee did meet at least once, if I'm not mistaken, but had been pretty inactive up to that point. And this,
We had many meetings until recently. Yes.
Until recently.
And I'd suggest that instead of saying inactive, which sounds like inert, maybe we could just say on standby.
On standby, sure.
Something else that doesn't sound like nobody's doing anything.
Not doing your work. Well,
yes, because you still got the committee chairs participating on the executive committee, and there's still other, right.
Exactly. And then the executive committee too, I tried to reactivate in some respects, as you all know, and we've had 2 or 3 meetings up to this point. So that's just a quick overview. We can shift the language, but just wanted to make sure we are all kind of on the same page in terms of what. There's also a strategic planning committee that had been meeting, which I think was a more ad hoc committee. So let me move to this next slide just so you can kind of see what an idea, right? And then I have coming after this slide, like some quick bullets about what each of these committees might actually be working on. So this is what I propose as like a kind of active committee structure going forward. The executive committee made youth committee, a new equity and disparity committee, again, an idea that's come out of the strategic plan. I'll share a little bit more on that coming, going forward. And then this is a big one, and it's got a lot, of words in it. Policy, Rules, and Research Committee. I'll articulate what that committee might do here in just a second. So stay tuned with any questions. But I think for going committees, in my view, should make sense. Let me share a little bit more, and then I'll take your questions. So the executive committee would be, and currently is really made up of the chair, the co-chair once we select somebody or elect somebody, committee chairs. Its purpose, preview and look at our YDC meeting agendas, track strategic plan, kind of serve as our strategic leadership body for the council, help ensure that our Youth Development Council and SAG, sorry to use the acronym STAG, as a state advisory group, which is actually a requirement given that we have federal funds, and the YDC serves as the state advisory group for Oregon. But there are some protocols, procedures, requirements around that. I think this committee should meet quarterly, typically in advance of the quarterly meeting. So that's kind of proposed. And there are probably other things that committee could do, but that's my quick proposal there. I'm going to hit some of these other slides so you can kind of see what I'm thinking. The Juvenile Justice Committee would remain, advise on juvenile crime prevention, tribal prevention, and youth justice issues. Meet and monitor the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention, otherwise known as the JJDP Act, and also those state advisory group requirements. Monitor and ensure accountability on racial and ethnic disparities, technical assistance for the counties with provisional and conditional status. That was something we talked about in June. Meeting schedules to be determined by the committee. They've been generally meeting quarterly, but then they moved to a monthly meeting, right? So that's what I am thinking there. Youth committee, Maricela, excited that you're here today. This is high, to just kind of high level, the work that this committee I think has already been doing and has done in the past, advising on youth engagement and communication, co-creating the Youth Summit and other efforts. We've talked in starting to build a mentorship program to allow those youth committee members to then have mentors who are other council members so that they, have some connection with our, more maybe experienced or longer serving youth council members. They've, attending conferences and trainings. We do have a requirement as a state advisory group to have 20% of our state advisory group being youth under the age of 28. So we want to continue to ensure that by adding these two other folks. As I mentioned earlier, I think we'll continue to meet the 20% youth, but I actually want to go beyond the 20%, frankly, and see our council having, is probably 50% youth over time. So 20% for me is a minimum, right? And then again, meeting schedule determined by the committee, probably quarterly, maybe more often when things are more active. I got two more committees I just want to share the details on, and then I'll take questions. The wording looks a little funny on here. Anyway, this Equity and Disparity Committee, I don't know if that's the best name, frankly, to be honest, but nonetheless, it's just a proposal at this point. We have some recommendations from MPC Research. They do our juvenile crime analysis on an annual basis and really help identify where the disparities are, particularly in the juvenile justice arena. But they've, I asked them this year, okay, I want the data, but I also want your recommendations. Like, what should we do about the disparities that we see? And they gave us some really specific and interesting recommendations around, not a surprise, I imagine, to anybody here, about funding culturally specific and culturally relevant programs, particularly for Native American youth, Black, African American youth. Like, fund those programs because those are the things that are going to impact disparities. And then there's some other recommendations which I won't detail here because we don't have a lot of time. But weighing in on the strategic plan, like communication specifically and outreach, like how do we engage people around our plan? Advise on the development of an equity statement and equity lens. Those are two things that are called out specifically in our strategic plan. I think we've got an equity lens from the past that we should look at, and no need to reinvent the wheel, but it's not something that I've looked at closely. But I think my experience having developed and applied an equity lens in my work in the past, I think we are doing that, but I think we want to share and be as intentional as possible around the use of an equity lens and ensure that we have like real broad understanding and application, not just at the staff level, but at the council level. So that committee could be instrumental in that. Then meeting schedule to be determined, again, probably quarterly. And then the last committee, again, a lot here, maybe too much, but review and support implementation of our policy agenda, which Cord is, going to be working on here soon and is called out in our strategic plan as a key deliverable. Advise on bill legislation implementation. Advise on the development of legislative concepts and policy option packages. Policy option packages are like the budget, things that have a budgetary impact. Review and support development of rules, engage in legislative and budget testimony, and then meet on a schedule that group determines, again, probably quarterly. So that, again, I'm moving fast here because it's 10 to 10 and clearly we're not going to make it through our full agenda. Those are the kind of 4 committees that I suggest. We have some other ad hoc committees and work groups that I wanted to just make sure people were aware of, whether inactive is the right word or not, but strategic planning, re-engagement in workforce. I'm saying that that actually could fold up into that policy, rules, and research committee. I think the rules and administrative committee could kind of fold in, and maybe I'm missing something, but that's why I put others. This slide actually just is questions, discussion, any initial reactions, anything missing. Karen, I saw your hand was raised. So I'll be quiet and would love to hear from executive committee members.
Thank you, Brian. And this is excellent. I love the rethinking on the committees, and I think it aligns well with what I recall of our strategic plan. I'd have to go back through, but I think it really does. And I appreciate all the hard work that goes into it. I had one small thought, and that was on the youth committee, whether the emphasis should be on vulnerable youth or not. We spent a lot of time talking about vulnerable youth during the strategic planning process, and should that be the focus rather than all youth generally? And then the last committee, the policy one, and maybe Janet can talk about this, it feels like it's two committees in one, and I just don't know about the workload for it. If we're asking people to think about developing kind of an innovative policy agenda, which was really the call to action, part of the call to action from the strategic plan, that seems like it's big enough on its own. And so that's just a thought, and I'd love to hear what others would have to say about that.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, she was just trying to think creatively about not having so many committees that then people are serving in too many roles. But yeah, I appreciate your point about the policy agenda piece. And maybe, and Janet would love your, and Celeste and Robin and anybody else would love your perspective. It may be that there's a work group that can meet around the policy agenda. And once we actually have that kind of created, you know, I don't know, maybe it's not like this ongoing committee in perpetuity around the agenda itself, but if those need to be broken, we need to break that up into a couple, you know, into two committees, you know, I hear you. I think there's a obviously a relationship and connection between the policy work, right? The you know, re-engagement, just to share one example, right? And re-engagement, which was a bill in the 2019 legislative session, and you know, that was developed as a concept, and then eventually became a bill, and then we had to write rules to support that legislation, right? It's all interconnected. So I think there's value in having a lot of that work. The YDC stuff, like the administrative stuff, yeah, I wonder whether we actually need a committee for that or not. So just a little more explanation. Janet, what do you think?
I appreciate Karen's perspective and concern on the scope of the work. I do think it's a good pairing because they're interlaced, and if you don't understand the administrative rules or the parameters, then it can hinder policy development. And I don't know if you would continue to do this with staff, but on the committee work, staff did quite a lot around administrative rules. So with the support of the staff on the rules development that had targeted concepts that came from the committee work, it might be possible to have policy linked with the administrative side of it. Or you could have a subcommittee, maybe fewer people that would be working on policy and then advising to the full committee. That sounds a little cumbersome to me. But I think getting the committee members together and getting a chair, they can have that discussion and figure out whether or not they think the scope is too large.
Thanks, Janet. That's really helpful. Yeah, appreciate that. Cord, anything or others that you'd add into the mix as we think about
I was just going to say, I mean, in response to Janet's comment really quickly, I think that rules development process would probably look pretty similar, where the YDD staff, who are the subject matter experts on an area that we're making rules on, would be developing draft rules. And I think the committee would function as the place where we would look at what we're developing and get input before we're bringing draft rules to the public and to the council. So there's two full council meetings that have to happen for the rules to be adopted. And this would really precede that, so that when we go to the council with draft rules that are published, that there has been a council committee that's been involved in the development and drafting before the full council sees it. But I think that the staff role would definitely still be there. And I mean, we'll talk more about the policy and partnership director position, but part of that role as we're developing it, that position is really to, on the staff side, manage the rules development process and work with the council on that.
Thank you. Any other executive committee input on this or questions? Yeah, I appreciate the comments, and I know we're kind of getting short on time. What I guess I'd ask of this group is, are you comfortable enough with the outline? And maybe Celeste, this is a question to you. And if, again, we need to have more emails or conversation about it, but to actually bring this as a recommendation to our September meeting, like as this sort of new 4 committee structure with, and start asking for folks to join them, and for somebody to chair it. And then, to Janet's point, maybe the scope, particularly around that policy one, can be worked out. Like, are we ready to bring a recommendation? This is my is my thinking based on what I heard over the last several months and year. What do y'all think about that? Or do we not want to bring a formal recommendation, and I can just sort of bring the ideas to the council? What do you think?
My recommendation is to try it out, because until we actually see it in practice, all of it's theoretical. And so I like the idea, rather than waiting more. I think we should bring it forward as a recommendation. I think we should begin the nomination and chair process, just so that we can collect feedback and we can really say, let's try it for a time period, and then make adjustments along the way as necessary to any of the committees where we need to do so.
Yeah, thanks, Celeste.
And Brian, it looks like there's no members of the public that have requested to make a public comment. So,
oh, good. So in the 2 minutes we have left, good. We can actually have a formal close. Robin, I just wanted to ask you if you have any thoughts about this committee, or Frank or Janine or anybody, any reactions or thoughts about the committee proposal?
I don't have any strong recommendations at this time, just because what I'm feeling and want of is an orientation to the strategic plan, so that I can make some more informed decisions around what I think. I do like the idea of trying some things on, but I also would like to see us implement and this is the end of the trial period, and this is either we are moving forward down a certain path or we're course correcting.
Okay, thanks, Robin.
Yeah.
We will, I think that's something too, that just since you brought up the sort of orientation and onboarding piece, like more generally, now that we've gotten word from the governor's office, we will be planning and be in touch about like more onboarding for new members. So stay tuned, more to come. We're at the top of the hour, and I know I made Cord like work really hard to get a strategic plan update and an RFA update. But we're kind of at the end of our time, and I want to be respectful of folks who have other things going on. So I imagine, and I don't know what folks want to do. Like, we've developed this presentation material so we can share it with you, and you can look at it and let us know if you have questions or comments. with some, several slides on the strategic plan, more about the request for applications. Sorry, that's what RFA means. We got a ton of applications. I'll just say that to you all. Well over 200 for both our community investments and our re-engagement money. So staff are working very hard. We're though a little bit behind because we've been inundated with so many applications, which I think is both good because there was some really great communication and outreach and engagement done to build interest. And also, the other side of this is that the need in communities for the work that we fund, I think remains and is growing. So it says something about community youth in need of services and supports, which, on the one hand, I'm excited that we're able to help meet the need through funding, but also certainly a bit, anxious about what that is saying about how young people and families are faring right across the state. So given that it's 10 o'clock, I guess my thinking, and Celeste and others, I would love your opinion about, like, we can share this. This is what we were able to get to. We'll share more at our September meeting, but we'll, again, actually in terms of discussion, but we can share the content that we've developed, and we welcome any questions or comments as we move forward. Celeste?
I know we'll spend a lot of time talking about both at the September meeting. So rather than have a really rushed conversation now, I'm seeing a lot of folks that have to hop off. So yeah. I think as long as we dedicate a significant portion of time at our upcoming meeting, that would be great.
All right. Well, Cord, I know you spent some time, as I said, putting together a lot of content, and Melissa, your efforts in getting this meeting off the ground was really good. Felt like we were able to cover some of what we needed to, and we appreciate having the new people, like the excitement for me about having new folks who are engaged. And Janet, we're happy too for you and your wedding plan. So thank you to everybody. We will see you soon. We'll put this out in some kind, like I said, we'll get you the PowerPoint, and I can send, also an update as a, via email, so folks can digest that.
And I'll just add, if you don't already, mark your calendars for September 9. The full council will meet at 9 a.m. and I'll send a Zoom link if you don't have it already.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, Melissa, we did it.